I read somewhere that purpose is oftentimes what frustrates you most in life. And not necessarily getting cut off at the grocery store line or your train being late, but what frustrates you at the core of who you are. It's something deeply rooted and embedded in your story. Because as human beings, we make sense of the world and ourselves through story. And when I think about my own purpose in life, which is to empower others to believe and dream more, that purpose, my purpose, is tightly woven into the fabric of my story, of who I uniquely am. It frustrates me whenever I speak to people, whenever I see people, whenever I'm talking to friends, acquaintances, so on and so forth. And there's this overall sort of indifference, of helplessness, of acceptance of what life is supposedly meant to consist of. And oftentimes, it's not what you uniquely want out of life. It sure as hell isn't what you dreamed of as a kid. Yet, you submit to that fate because you've been told by others, but oftentimes because you've told yourself that. You've told yourself a story in which it's not possible to want more, to dream more, to have more potential for yourself and for your life and everything that you touch. And when I think about why this frustrates me so much, right? Why, right? Why does this frustrate me in particular more so than any other thing I could have been frustrated by in life? And it's because it's at the core of who I am. Because when I think about my story, so much of my story was being written for me, being told by someone else, and I merely accepted it. I spent so much of my childhood being told by damn near everybody, including my own parents, the people who are supposed to empower you to explore new heights, to tell you that you have unlimited potential, that you can be anyone and anyone you want to be in life. They were telling me, on top of teachers, coaches, peers, society, so on and so forth, who I couldn't be, what I couldn't do, right? Because as my fate would have it, by nothing more than just how I was born, of which I had no control over, I was resigned to, excuse me, certain paths in life, right? I wasn't allowed to dream of being an athlete or an actor or a musician. I was permitted to dream of being a doctor, engineer, or a lawyer. I wasn't allowed to dream of being the charismatic, confident guy that all the girls would woo over and whatnot. I was permitted to be the insecure, feminine, weak, nerdy, undesirable Asian kid. I spent my entire life carrying around this story message, and I believed it. I believed it, as so many other people do when it comes to accepting a fate, a story that was not theirs to begin with. I limited my own potential. And the thing is, whether I realized it or not, I spent much of my life resentful of this fact, this statement. I spent so much of my life trying to prove everyone wrong in so many ways. In the gym, I tried to prove the stereotypes wrong by becoming the strongest person in the gym. I tried to prove people wrong who said that, the Asian kid can't be a confident, charismatic leader by becoming the president of my business fraternity. I proved people wrong who said that a kid that wasn't from a target school could get into investment banking, and I did that too. But why was I so focused on just proving people wrong? And above all, living to their potential of what they had in store for me. Because I realized so often in life, we try to fit into other people's definition of potential. We try to fit into a glass who we are and our possibilities for life when there shouldn't be a glass to begin with. Because our potential, your potential, for who you are, and what you can do in this life is unlimited. It can't be contained. But we've spent our lives over time from anyone and everyone building this glass of which we can wedge ourselves into. Because when you try to live to someone else's version of potential, you limit your own. I envisioned a life for myself where I could end up as some senior business leader just tapping away at a computer and a screen, or maybe, talking to other fancy schmoozy business leaders. That was the potential I saw for my life, because that's what other people had sold me on. But that's never what I wanted out of my life. Deep down, we all know that, right? As kids, you don't even know that there is such a thing as potential because it doesn't exist yet. Because you have no concept of it. Because your dreams of who you want to be and what you can do are unlimited. I feel like potential only comes into play when we say you're reaching your potential or you're not. So kids don't have any notion of that. And deep down, we all feel that too. That feeling of wanting, of yearning to be someone, to do certain things. Yet, we limit ourselves. We're scared of what other people think, do, or say if we try to expand beyond the glass. We're used to being contained there, be as comfortable for others, because they don't want to acknowledge that they themselves too have boxed in their own potential. They're not realizing the depths, the fullness of their own dreams. And that frustrates me. As someone who's spent his entire life limiting himself to now being able to free himself of these constraints and to be able to see and feel a future in which he can do anything and be anyone. Gosh, that dichotomy, it's hard to accept and to balance at times, knowing what both feel like and not wish the same for others. It's kind of like having ice cream for the first time. If you're lactose, I don't know what to tell you. But when you taste ice cream for the first time, you can never go back. And you want everyone else to experience what ice cream tastes like. You want everyone else to experience what it's like to have no limits on potential, on who you can be and what you can do. And we bring it back full circle when it comes to purpose, like I've talked about before. It's unique to you. And as I've told my own story, this purpose of mine to empower others to believe and dream more, it's unique to me. And people oftentimes wonder, or they ask me, why this in particular, right? Because so oftentimes purpose is about serving and helping others. And there's so many ways to do that. And for me in particular, I was surrounded by people in the medical field. I, as naturally as one would as an Asian son of immigrant parents, for the longest time thought I would be a doctor. When I think about it deeply, I think back to my own story, the one I just told you, I'm not meant to be a doctor. I was never meant to be one. When I think about why, it's crystal clear to me. It's because, admittedly so, when you're working in medicine, when you're a doctor, oftentimes you are bringing an individual back to where they were before a disease, an ailment, an injury. You're trying to bring them back to 100% or a new sense of normalcy with whatever sort of circumstances they're undergoing. And as someone who spent much of his life being told he was less than or unable to, someone who spent his entire life proving people wrong, to say that what you've set for me is not my limit, getting people back to a sense of normal is not something I can have as my purpose. I want to be able to, I aspire to, and I will help people go beyond 100%, 110, 200, whatever. There is no measure. You can't measure potential. You can't measure what you are capable of. I've realized this in so many times throughout my life, whether it's working with people in the gym. That was really where it started for me. Being able to realize that physically I'm beyond these limits I had previously thought for myself, others had thought for me. Whether it's tutoring, being able to help people realize that they are more than a number on a test telling them if they are intelligent or not. And that sometimes it takes just a little bit of a different approach. In mentorship, being able to invest in an individual to play the role of a person in their life who genuinely believes in them, the person who encourages and empowers them to believe and dream more. The person I myself didn't have in my life, and I still don't necessarily in my immediate life. But at the very least, I strive to be that person for someone else. Hopefully it's you. So, all to say, you have so much damn potential in life for who you can be and what you can do. There's absolutely nothing limiting you. Oftentimes, it may take being uncomfortable and during discomfort, oftentimes going stretches of feeling isolated and alone, because that's what happens when you step away from the pack, when you strip away the glass of conformity that you've been fitting yourself into this entire time. But the beautiful part is, that's my calendar. The beautiful part is, when you work towards actualizing your own potential, it's not a self-serving act. Because in doing so, you model for others the behaviors of how to do the same. You inspire others to do the same. So, that's who I am. That's why my purpose is to empower others to believe and dream more. And I encourage you to also think and ponder for yourself. What frustrates you more than anything in life? Because it is a core part of who you are in the story that you've been told, that you've been telling your entire life. From there, figure out how you can serve that purpose. And we'll all be better off for it. So, with that, thank you for your time. I appreciate it as always. And have a lovely rest of your day.